Every time you've ever looked at a price tag and thought, that's too much, you were doing economics. Every time you grabbed the last one off the shelf because you knew they'd be gone by tomorrow, you were responding to a signal, one that most people feel but never actually decode. You've been playing this game your entire life. Prices moving, things selling out, deals appearing out of nowhere, and disappearing just as fast. None of it is random. There's a mechanic underneath all of it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. That mechanic is supply and demand. And it's not just some phrase your teacher put on the board in 10th grade. It's the single most fundamental force driving how prices get set, how resources move, and how billions of individual decisions somehow organize themselves into something that mostly works. Here's the core of it. Demand is how much of something people want at a given price, not how much they wish they could have, how much they'd actually buy. As the price goes up, fewer people are willing to pay. As the price drops, more people jump in. That relationship between price and willingness to buy is demand. Supply is the other side. It's how much of something producers are willing to make and sell at a given price. When prices are high, it's worth it for more producers to enter the game. The margins are there. When prices are low, some producers drop out because the effort stops being worth the reward. That relationship between price and willingness to sell is supply. Where those two forces meet, where the amount people want to buy matches the amount producers want to sell, that's the equilibrium price. It's not set by anyone. No one decides it in a meeting. It emerges from the collision of every buyer and every seller acting on their own logic. Think of it like a server finding its natural population, not because anyone planned it, but because the conditions made that number stable. Now, let's watch this work in the simplest possible scenario. Imagine a farmer's market with one product: strawberries. Early in the season, there aren't many available. The few farmers who have them can charge a premium because people want them and alternatives are scarce. Demand is high relative to supply, so the price sits high. A few weeks later, peak season hits. Every farmer shows up with crates of strawberries, supply floods in. But the number of people who want strawberries hasn't changed that much. There are only so many you can eat. Now there's more supply than demand at the old price, so farmers start dropping their price to make sure they sell before the berries go bad. The price falls until it hits a point where everything clears. Buyers are happy to buy at that price, sellers can still move their inventory, and the market balances. Nobody coordinated this. No one told the farmers what to charge. The price adjusted itself because supply and demand shifted, and the equilibrium moved with them. That's the mechanic working exactly as designed. But the tutorial level is clean. The real world isn't. In practice, supply and demand don't move one at a time while you watch. They move simultaneously in response to forces that aren't always visible. A drought hits and wipes out half the strawberry crop. Supply drops. At the same time, a viral post makes strawberry recipes trend. Demand spikes. Both curves shift at once, and the new equilibrium could be dramatically different from where it was a week ago. The price jumps, and unless you understand that two things changed, it just looks like someone decided to charge more. This is where most people's intuition starts to break down. They see a price increase and reach for the simplest explanation: greed, gouging, someone being unfair, and sometimes that's part of it. But more often, the price is just reporting what happened to supply and demand. It's a signal, not a decision. Learning to separate the emotional reaction from the mechanical reality is one of the most useful upgrades you can make to how you think about money. Layer in the concept of elasticity and things get even more interesting. Some goods have elastic demand. When the price goes up, people just buy less or switch to something else. If strawberries double in price, you buy blueberries. The demand curve is flexible. It bends without breaking because there are alternatives and none of them are urgent. Most of what you buy at a grocery store works like this. Price goes up, you adapt, and the market corrects relatively quickly because sellers feel the drop in volume. But some goods have inelastic demand. No matter what happens to the price, people still need roughly the same amount: insulin, gasoline, rent in a city where your job is. The demand barely budges because the cost of not buying is worse than the cost of paying more. When demand is inelastic, a supply shock doesn't just raise prices. It transfers wealth directly from buyers to sellers because buyers can't walk away. The price increases and sticks there because there's no pressure from reduced buying to push it back down. That distinction between elastic and inelastic demand is one of the most important things in economics, and it rarely gets the attention it deserves. It's the difference between a price increase that self-corrects and one that just grinds people down. Every policy debate about price controls, every argument about healthcare costs, every surge pricing notification on your phone, elasticity is the hidden stat governing how hard that price change actually hits. Two goods can experience the exact same supply shock, and the one with inelastic demand will cause 10 times the economic pain. Same mechanic, wildly different consequences, all because of that one variable. Now, here's the dimension of supply and demand that most explanations skip entirely, and it's the one that matters most for understanding how real economies behave. Supply and demand aren't just about what's happening right now. They're about expectations. If buyers believe a price is going to rise next month, they buy more today, which increases demand now, which actually pushes the price up now. The expectation created the reality. If producers believe prices are going to fall, they rush to sell their inventory before it does, which increases supply now, which actually pushes the price down now. Again, the belief produced the outcome. This feedback loop between expectations and reality is why markets can behave in ways that seem irrational from the outside. Housing bubbles, stock manias, panic selling, none of these are random failures. They're supply and demand responding not to current conditions, but to what people think conditions will become. The mechanic is still working. It's just processing a different input than most people realize. And once enough participants act on the same expectation, that expectation becomes self-reinforcing. Prices rise because people expected them to rise, which makes more people expect them to rise. The feedback loop has a feedback loop. This is also why information matters so much in economics. When a central bank announces a policy change, the actual policy might not take effect for months. But supply and demand start shifting the moment the announcement drops because expectations shift instantly. Markets are often described as forward-looking, which sounds abstract until you realize it just means supply and demand respond to the future as much as the present. The game state changes the moment players update their strategy, not when the patch goes live. Once you understand that supply and demand are driven by expectations as much as by current conditions, you start reading the economy differently. A price isn't just a number, it's compressed information. It's telling you something about scarcity, desire, time, belief, and the interaction of millions of decisions you'll never see individually. When gas prices spike, you can ask, is this a supply disruption, a demand surge, or a market pricing in something that hasn't happened yet? When housing gets more expensive in a city, you can separate the signal. Is supply constrained? Is demand growing? Or are both happening at once? When a new product launches at a high price and drops over time, you can recognize the pattern: supply scaling up, early demand being captured at a premium, and the equilibrium settling as both sides adjust. You stop seeing prices as things that happen to you and start seeing them as data. And that shift from passive recipient to active reader is what economic literacy actually means. You're not going to control supply and demand. Nobody does. But you can read the signals instead of just reacting to them. You can understand why things cost what they cost when a price is likely temporary versus structural, and what's actually driving the changes that affect your daily life. That understanding compounds. Every economic concept you learn after this one plugs into the framework supply and demand gave you. That's what this series is built to do. 8-Bit Economics breaks down the economic systems that shape everyday life, starting right here with the fundamentals. These 5 episodes are designed to build on each other. Each one gives you a mechanic that makes the next one land harder and makes everything else on this channel make more sense. If this helped something click, hit like. Subscribe if you want the full foundation. And drop a comment with what you want to understand next. The questions are often better than the answers. Every complex system runs on simple mechanics. Now you know one more. Supply and demand isn't the whole picture of how economies work. It's the first layer, the base mechanic that every other system interacts with. Monetary policy, trade, taxation, market structure. All of them are, at some level, manipulating or responding to supply and demand. You now have the lens. The next episode gives you another one, and the picture gets sharper every time. The economy isn't a black box, it's a system, and systems can be learned.